Hello, Debbie DeWitz-Jensen here, sharing with you part 4 of 5 video parts on the science and philosophy behind emotional interference patterns and how they affect our lives. I am continuously fascinated and amazed by all I learn about the heart. Here we have HeartMath Institute's mathematical model of the electrical field generated by the heart. Did you know that our heart's electrical field is more than 60 times greater in electrical amplitude than the electrical activity generated by the brain? The heart creates electrical fields in 2 very important ways. 1, by the movement of the blood being pumped, electrons are rubbed off through the fluid flows. The stream of moving electrons creates electrical current, and, of course, more blood is pumped through the heart than the brain, so more electrical current is created in the heart. And 2, there is a group of pacemaker cells in our heart that stimulates each beat and also creates an electrical pulse. The electrical currents in the brain are going in all sorts of different directions, which means that often the brain's electrical fields cancel each other out. You have to get synchronized in order to accomplish more. The magnetic fields generated by the heart is more than 5,000 times greater in strength than the field generated by the brain. Dr. Len Laskow says that it's more accurate to say that it's closer to 6,000 times stronger, but that we are on the safe side by saying it's more than 5,000 times greater. A magnetic field is always generated at right angles by the electrical field, and there is much, much more magnetic energy created by the way the heart works. The actual pumping of the heart creates a very strong magnetic field, and the brain, of course, has no such mechanism. Another fascinating fact is that our heart's field can now be measured up to 1,500 feet away from our body in all directions. And the heart transmits information that can be received by others at the subconscious level of mind. Our heart communicates with our brain and body in 4 ways: neurologically, through the transmission of nerve impulses; biophysically, through pressure or pulse waves; biochemically via hormones and neurotransmitters; and energetically through electromagnetic field interactions. Communications along these conduits significantly affect the brain activity. Researchers show that messages the heart sends the brain also affects our behavior. It affects what we notice in the environment around us, and because of that, our potential unfolds in our lives. Our heart influences profoundly affect brain functions and most of our body's major organs, which ultimately determines the quality of our life. 2, with our heart-brain communication system, the emotions and reactions we are feeling in various regions of our body profoundly affects what happens in our heart, which is part of the reason why it's so vital that we resolve any emotional interference patterns we carry within us. In the past few years, science researchers have discovered, in addition to all the downstream information from the brain to the heart, and also autonomic downstream to organs and the spinal column, there is a huge volume of information going back upstream via the vagus nerve. What is truly fascinating is that with all the different factors in the body sending signals and information, the surprise was that the heart is sending more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. With this 2-way communication system of information coming downstream and going upstream, the heart and the brain are hardwired in 3 separate ways. Most important of these ways is called the vagus nerve. It's about as thick as your thumb and connects from the top of your heart. It goes through the back of your throat and connects into the base of your brain. So whatever is happening in the heart every second is being sent up to the brain, and it affects the brain, which sends messages down to the body, creating an interactive loop. Another couple of surprises were that, as it turns out, the heart is saturated with sensory neurites, the very kinds of neurons that feel. Your skin has neurons. Whether you sense the room is warm or cool, those are neurons processing that information. And whether the chair you're sitting on is hard or cushioned, your skin has neurons sending that information. And your heart is saturated with neurons. Not only that, but in addition to the sensory neurites, your heart has approximately 40,000 brain neurons, so sensory neurons that feel, and brain neuronal circuits that transmit and receive signals. This plays a profound role in brain function. On a side note, there are approximately 100,000 neuronal nets in the brain, approximately 40 to 60,000 in the spinal column, approximately 40,000 in the heart, and 40,000 in your gut. And here we thought all this time our mind was in our brain. And according to Joseph Sundram, the third way that the heart is hardwired to the brain is through the amygdala, which is tuned to the signals coming out of the heart. The amygdala is a nodal point that directly routes incoming sensory information in all forms to the higher centers of reasoning in the cortex. The amygdala can either send messages on to the brain for intelligence, or it can hijack the information right there. The decision about what becomes a thought rising to consciousness and what remains an undigested thought pattern buried at a deeper level in the body is mediated by the emotion-driven subconscious. Emotion signals from the heart to the amygdala, then either on to or not to accessing higher reasoning. Do you see why this is so important to take a look at how the heart is affected by our emotions and its impact on our intelligence? Neuropeptides bring us to states of consciousness and alter those states. What this means to us is that emotions play a vital part in our ability to rewrite our subconsciously held experiences of life. This is the end of Part 4. Please join us for Part 5 of the science and philosophy behind emotional interference patterns and how they affect our lives.